Welcome to Awareness with Vanessa. This week we continue the exit steps with part two, how to exit the human simulation. In part one, we began with the idea of recognizing the system, seeing the patterns, the programming, and the way the human experience can pull us into reaction without us even realizing it. But awareness is only the beginning. In this episode, we move deeper into the question, what does it actually mean to exit? Is it a physical exit, spiritual return, shift in consciousness, or is the first doorway the moment we stop reacting and start observing? This conversation is inspired in part by the teachings of Truth Seeker 1 and the idea of home, and it is also explored through the themes in my books displayed. As always, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. The point is for everyone to become aware, so take what resonates, question what doesn't, and listen with your own inner knowing. Now let's begin.
Just right in the middle of a totally chaotic, terrifying dream, and then suddenly you just look around and think, wait a minute.
Yeah, that sudden jolt of realization.
Right, you realize, I am dreaming. None of this is actually real.
It's a highly lucid moment, yeah.
Exactly, and that jarring moment of waking up inside the illusion is exactly what we are exploring today.
Oh.
We are picking up right where Vanessa left off in her narration, and we are diving deep into the exit simulation steps.
And, we should clarify right out of the gate, we are treating these steps not as some literal sci-fi escape pod instruction manual.
Like a schematic for a spaceship or something.
Right, exactly. It's a profound philosophical framework. These exit steps were originally inspired by a book called Truth Seeker, but today we're really going to explore them through the incredibly expansive lens of Vanessa Klinger's literary universe.
There are novels, her memoirs, the philosophical guides.
All of it. They all weave together into this massive, beautiful tapestry about what it truly means to be aware within the simulation of the human experience.
Which is such a massive topic because, as anyone who has ever had one of those lucid dreams knows, realizing you are dreaming doesn't just, instantly pop you out of bed.
No, not at all.
The dream fights back. Suddenly the dream characters stop what they're doing and just stare at you, or the scenario gets even more chaotic just to pull your attention back in and put you back to sleep.
Yeah, the system notices you noticing it.
It totally does.
And that brings us to the first immediate obstacle you hit, which the exit brief calls the archons.
Right, the archons.
Now, historically, philosophically, archons are often described as these literal deceptive entities. But in this specific framework, their function is actually purely mechanical.
Like software.
Exactly like software.
Yeah.
They use fear, guilt, and your deep attachment to familiar identities to basically pull your consciousness back into the loop. They don't have to physically restrain you.
They just trigger you.
They trigger you until you emotionally invest again.
It's basically the ultimate targeted ad campaign. I mean, think about the algorithm on your social media feed. Oh, that is a perfect analogy.
Right. It is literally designed to keep you doom scrolling. The platform doesn't force your thumb to keep swiping. It doesn't have to.
It just knows your exact buttons.
Yes, it knows exactly what sparks your political outrage or your fear of missing out or your deepest insecurities, so you click voluntarily. You keep yourself in the loop because you are reacting to highly calibrated stimuli.
And Klinger actually illustrates this exact mechanism in her novels. Specifically in Let Us Make Man and Level 8.
Oh yeah, the world building in those is intense.
It is. She shows how the corrupted architecture of this Earth experience simulation, it doesn't actually need humanity to be completely unconscious.
Wait, it doesn't?
No, it just needs us to be emotionally occupied.
Emotionally occupied. Man, that is such a heavy phrase.
Right.
Because it means as long as I'm furious about a news headline or terrified about some looming deadline at work or obsessively desiring a promotion, I am stuck. My bandwidth is fully consumed by the game. Exactly. Anger, fear, insatiable desire. These emotions narrow your awareness into an immediate, localized immersion. In the novels, she calls this the performance layer.
The performance layer.
Yeah, you become so utterly absorbed in the role you are playing, your career title, your political identity, family drama, that you mistake the avatar for the actual soul.
And that emotional output is literally the fuel that sustains the corrupted system.
It is. The system feeds on that friction.
And if we pull in Klinger's book, Reality Reprogrammed, the mechanics of this become crystal clear. Life is described there as a dynamic simulation that responds neutrally to the frequency you emit.
Right. Frequency is key here.
And your frequency is basically the sum total of your thoughts, your emotions, and your core beliefs.
So the simulation acts as neutral processor. It's just mirroring that frequency back to you, When you take the bait from those Archon pop-ups,
When you get outraged by the tweet.
exactly. When you let them dictate your reactions, you emit a frequency of fear or scarcity or conflict.
And then what happens?
The simulation processes that lower frequency by rendering more obstacles in your reality, which effectively keeps you trapped in the feedback loop.
Wow. Which, I mean, that forces a really uncomfortable question for all of us. If the system is using our own emotions against us, we have to ask why we are so susceptible to these traps in the first place.
Why do we take the bait?
Yeah. Why do we click the emotional clickbait so predictably every single time?
To figure that out, we really have to look at the psychological blueprint that gets coded into us very early on. Klinger breaks this down brilliantly in Sessions with Destiny.
I love that book.
It's eye-opening. She explains that our vulnerability to the simulation's traps almost always begins around age 5.
Age 5. That is so specific.
It is, because it's a critical breakpoint in human development.
It's the age where a child stops just floating in that unconditional innocence and starts actually noticing the tension in the room.
Exactly.
You notice the unspoken rules, the subtle threats in your environment, maybe a parent's unpredictable moods, or the stress over money at the dinner table.
And if you're listening to this, you might be thinking, well, I had a pretty normal, happy childhood, so this doesn't apply to me.
Right, I didn't have any major trauma.
Exactly. But Klinger's point is that every child experiences the friction of a world that isn't perfectly attuned to their needs. And to navigate that friction, we form what she calls the survivor self.
Or the protector archetype.
Right. We build a survival personality to keep us safe whatever environment we find ourselves in.
We build armor.
We do.
And the real tragedy is we grow up and mistake that survival armor for our actual identity.
We think it's who we are.
Yeah, we think, oh, I'm just a really responsible type A person, or I'm a natural peacemaker, when really we were just trying to manage the adults around us when we were kids so the environment would stay stable.
Which leads directly to what she calls the loyalty loop.
The loyalty loop, break that down for us.
So the survivor self is basically the engine of the loyalty loop. This is the ingrained pattern of staying in situations, jobs, relationships, physical locations, long after their expiration date.
Because our childhood programming taught us that endurance equals love.
Yes, or that suffering is somehow noble, so we stay. We truly believe that if we just try harder, if we're just a little more loyal, we can fix something fundamentally broken.
Let's put a real-world face on this because it's so common. It's the employee at a toxic startup who works 80-hour weeks, missing every family event because they've equated those late-night emails with their inherent personal value.
Exactly.
Or the person who is constantly trying to fix an emotionally available partner, thinking, if I just love them enough, they will change.
They become loyal to the possibility of repair while completely ignoring their own growth.
And stepping out of that loop is terrifying for the survivor self.
Yeah.
Because the armor is comfortable, even if it's completely suffocating.
All you've ever known.
Right. But I do have to push back here for a second, though,
Sure.
because it is super easy for us to sit behind these microphones and say, hey, recognize the loyalty loop and just walk away.
Oh, absolutely.
But when you are in the thick of it and your life actually starts falling apart, like when you get fired from that startup you gave everything to, or that long-term relationship just completely shatters, it doesn't feel like some grand philosophical awakening.
No, it feels terrible.
It feels like a punishment. It feels like absolute failure. So how are we supposed to practically distinguish between a temporary setback that we should, grit our teeth through and a broken cycle we need to just abandon?
It is incredibly painful.
Yeah.
But Klinger addresses this directly by connecting Sessions with Destiny to her other work, Time to Transform.
Oh, right. The time to demolish phase.
Exactly. She introduces the collapse cycle. When timelines break, when everything seems to violently fall apart all at once, it is not a punishment. It is not random chaos. It is choreography.
Choreography, I absolutely love using that word for this because it implies a director, it implies a design behind the chaos.
It's purposeful. A timeline only breaks for a few specific reasons. You've outgrown it, it can no longer support who you are becoming, or it was never actually meant to hold you in the first place.
So it snaps.
Right. When you experience that violent collapse, it is literally the universe expelling you from a room you have outgrown.
Wow.
The system is rerouting you because your current environment, no matter how hard your survivor self tries to cling to it, is suffocating your true frequency.
So the collapse is the correction.
Exactly.
We tend to stay until the lesson is complete, not until the relationship or the job is complete. The collapse happens because your intuition is screaming go, but your childhood programming is whispering stay.
and that intense friction causes the timeline to snap.
Okay, so let's say you realize the collapse is actually a reroute and you start to detach, you stop clicking those emotional pop-up ads. But the simulation is dynamic, right?
Very dynamic. When it realizes you are trying to leave,
Right.
it doesn't just passively watch you walk out the door.
No, it does not. Which brings us to the fiction of level 8, where we see the system's countermove.
The countermove is brilliant.
It really is. In the story, there are these specific release codes spreading through the population. Actual phrases of awakening, like INIT 00000002.
Right, they act as disruptors.
And as these fragments of truth circulate, they create what the book calls awareness clusters. People start waking up. They stop generating that emotional friction that the system feeds on.
Because the system is essentially starving for your emotional energy.
Exactly.
But notice, it doesn't try to violently destroy the awakened souls. It runs an algorithm to find a new way to capture them. It attempts to transfer them.
It's the ultimate corporate retention strategy.
Yes.
I mean, think about trying to cancel a really tough subscription online. You click cancel, and suddenly a screen pops up offering you 3 months free of a shiny new premium tier.
With extra features.
Right. It looks like a massive upgrade, a totally new ad-free experience, but really, you are still locked into their ecosystem. They just changed the wallpaper on your cage and gave you a gold-plated lock.
In Klinger's novel, this new premium tier is literally called Level 8. It's a new simulation architecture designed to mimic progress perfectly.
How does it do that?
Well, the system might scan your data, find your highest ideal, say an isolated spiritual utopia or a seemingly enlightened community, and build a custom reality around it just to get you emotionally invested again.
So it uses your desire for peace against you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It convinces the prisoner to walk willingly into the next prison by labeling it an upgrade.
Man. So how do you avoid falling for the upgrade? How do you know when it's time to just stand up and walk away from the table entirely?
This is where Klinger uses a really brilliant gambling metaphor across her books, Play Smart and Free Play.
I think about this metaphor all the time.
It's so helpful. Imagine life as a massive casino. We have there parts of ourselves driving our behavior at the tables.
Okay.
The inner child is entirely focused on the thrill, the flashing lights, the sensory overload.
Right. The inner child just wants to stay in the casino forever, chasing the feeling at the slot machines.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the adult self is trying to manage the rules. The adult self is calculating odds at the blackjack table, trying to control the inherently uncontrollable nature of the game.
And the adult self is too busy trying to break even to realize they should just leave.
Bingo. But there's a third part, the higher self.
The higher self.
The higher self isn't distracted by the flashing lights, and it isn't trying to outsmart the dealer. It just knows when the experience is complete. Walking away isn't about winning or losing the game.
It's about leaving with your sovereignty intact.
Yes, you don't owe the machine closure. You don't need to emotionally debrief with the dealer. You simply decide the game is over, and you step out.
You just stand up and walk out.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that begs the ultimate literal question here. If you've ignored the pop-up ads, untangled your childhood programming, refused the shiny level 8 subscription upgrade, and stepped away from the table?
How do you actually leave the building?
Yes. Where's the exit?
The final steps outlined in the exit simulation brief describe using an unwavering will to activate a star connection.
A star connection.
It is symbolized as locking on to a cosmic beacon. It's often represented as the aurora borealis, or what the brief playfully calls the green taxi.
I love that so much. Hailing the metaphysical Uber.
It's a great image.
Yeah.
The green taxi carries your consciousness straight to the central console of the simulation. This is the critical moment of unplugging from the physical server.
And to understand how this works mechanically, we really should look at the human experience image chart from our sources.
We definitely should.
That chart maps it out beautifully. It breaks down the user experience into 3 distinct parts: the avatar, the spirit, and the soul.
Right.
The avatar is just the physical suit. The spirit acts as the driver or the energetic force navigating that suit. But the soul, your divine essence, pure awareness, exists entirely beyond the simulation in base reality.
So you are the observer sitting in base reality, driving the avatar via the spirit.
Okay, I'm tracking.
When the green taxi takes you to the central console and you unplug, you are consciously releasing the avatar and the spirit driver. You return fully to base reality as the pure soul, where your true form is restored, freeing you from the cycle of forgetting.
Okay, but this brings up a huge philosophical contradiction that I really struggle with.
What's that?
If the ultimate goal of all this pain, the collapse cycles, dodging archons, fighting our own survival armor, if the entire point is just to hail this green taxi and escape back to base reality? Wait, I mean, why did we ever plug in to begin with?
It's the big question.
Right. If base reality is so perfect, why not just stay home?
It is the most profound question in this entire framework. And the answer is this really beautiful paradox at the heart of Klinger's philosophy.
Synthesizing the ideas across her universe.
Yes, especially looking at Destiny Realized. We find that the Earth experience, in its original uncorrupted design, was never meant to be a prison.
It was supposed to be level 1, like a temporary safe sandbox.
Yeah, exactly. It was designed as a place to evolve and create, to experience the breathtaking full spectrum of existence: joy, pain, connection, loss.
The things you can't feel without a body.
Right. In base reality, as pure awareness, you know everything conceptually, but you don't actually experience limitation. You don't experience the specific kind of friction required for deep growth.
Like you can't feel the warmth of the sun or the wind against your face if you don't have a face. The avatar gives you the gift of sensation.
You came here to experience life, not to run away from it. The tragedy is simply that the code became corrupted, and we got lost in the lower levels. We forgot we were the ones driving the avatars.
We thought we were the avatar.
Exactly. But as Klinger writes in Destiny Realized, destiny is not a destination you finally arrive at. It is an active partnership with life. You are a co-creator here.
And the homesickness people feel, that nagging sense that there is something more.
The exit brief says it perfectly. That longing for home isn't an illusion. It is a memory.
A memory of base reality.
Yes. But remembering home doesn't mean you have to resent the trip. You just have to navigate the journey with your eyes wide open.
And that changes how you interact with absolutely everything. When you realize the obstacles are just poorly coded software trying to harvest your attention, they lose their power over you.
They really do.
Let's bring this all together for you listening. Exiting the simulation as a philosophy means recognizing that awareness isn't a finish line. You don't just wake up one morning, declare yourself enlightened, and check out.
It is a daily, active practice of discernment.
Staying sovereign means constantly checking your blind spots. You have to see the Archon pop-up ads trying to harvest your outrage. You have to spot those false level 8 upgrades that look like progress but are just fresh coats of paint on the same cage.
And you have to learn to trust the collapse. When the timeline violently breaks, it is the system recalibrating to your true frequency. It's clearing the debris to make room for the real you, the soul behind the avatar.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over on your own. Think about the lucid dream. Think about the casino table and the loyalty loops keeping you glued to the slot machines. What if the very next time your life feels like it's entirely falling apart? When you hit that painful, disorienting collapse cycle, what if it isn't a failure at all? What if that collapse is just your personal green taxi finally arriving to pull you out of a room you were never meant to stay in and take you exactly where you belong? And now let's bring Vanessa back for her closing reflection, the way I see it.
Before we close, let me bring this back to the way I see it. The exit is not just a door somewhere outside of us. It begins the moment we stop reacting to the system as if it owns us. Awareness gives us the pause. Observation gives us the choice. And choice is where freedom starts. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. The point is for everyone to become aware, question everything, observe more, because awareness changes everything. Join me on Mondays for The Way I See It, a deeper reflection on the latest episode of Awareness with Vanessa.